Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. I'm Harper LeBel, and I'm joined today. Jeremiah Long is our producer and engineer. Vincent Turner is not able to be with us today, so replacing him on the roster, the next man up, that's Brian LeBel. Brian, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Got to make a call to the bullpen every once in a while, and you know what? I'm happy to do it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yep, if we're going to go to the lefty right out of the pen, we're glad that you're able to do that. Today, we're going to talk about one of the NFL legends and a guy that really, for anyone that's been around football for the last 20 years, will recognize the name Ray Lewis. And Ray, we're going to talk about his pro career. We're going to talk about everything that he was able to accomplish at the University of Miami and even go back to his high school days. Before we do, though, I do want to mention for anyone out there that is wanting to place a bet here in the last few days of March Madness, they're at the Final Four. So if you like Auburn, if you like Duke, if you like Florida, any of the teams that are part of that and want to be a part of that action, the beginning of the Major League Baseball season, playoffs for the NFL, or excuse me, for the NHL and the NBA are right around the corner. You can go to mybookie.ag. You can go online. You can get any questions answered about the site itself, its safety, what your restrictions are, depending on what part of the country that you live in, what state you're in. Take care of all of that. You open an account, you fund the account, and next thing you know, you're having a great time placing bets and hopefully winning a ton of money. Please use the promotional code MM50, so Mary50. When you go to mybookie.ag, you can place casino bets. You can do anything with the horses if that's a part of the action that you like. But we appreciate them being a proud sponsor of our show, and we want to make sure that we mention it so that you have a great opportunity to do something unique, something fun, and something that you'll hopefully enjoy for the rest of your life. But please do so responsibly, and mybookie.ag is a sponsor of the show. So, Brian, let's get right to Ray Lewis. What an amazing player, and the first and foremost look that you would have, he's obviously on many people's list as one of the great all-time linebackers, but basically one of the top defensive players in NFL history.
The numbers certainly back that up. What he was able to do, he's got a Super Bowl MVP, which is very rare for a defensive player. He's the all-time leader in solo tackles, which is, I mean, it's a testament to him because that defense was really good. So it's not like they were on the field a lot. You know how you have teams now where a lot of times you'll have the league leaders in tackles. If you look at the records of the teams they're playing for, usually they're not in the playoffs. And that's, you know, maybe because you have an offense that's more lackluster. Maybe you have a defense that's on the field more. But the Ravens defense, there was not a lot of plays were being run by the opposition. Not a lot of successful plays either. And Ray was a big part of that reason.
Yeah. Well, let's date back to the beginning. Raymond Anthony Jenkins was born on May 15th, 1975 in Bartow, Florida. Ray's father wasn't around a whole heck of a lot. Ray was the oldest of 5 kids. And when mom was working, as early as Ray can remember, he was responsible for making sure his 4 other brothers and sisters were safe and taken care of. So an era of responsibility, of protectionism, of doing whatever it took to make things right for the family. That was something that went with Ray from the very earliest of his age. And when he was just about ready to go into high school, the disdain that he had because dad wasn't around, so he changed his last name to Lewis. Mom was seeing another gentleman, and his stepfather, last name was Lewis, so he adopted that for himself. And he goes to high school, and he's a pretty good football player. And people start noticing right off the bat. He was a safety when he first started playing his sophomore year, but he started growing as every boy will when puberty kicks in, gets a little bit bigger, gets a lot stronger, and they moved him to linebacker. And that, in my mind's eye, was one of the great changes for him. He found a spot. He had a place where people supported him, coaching staff, other players. This is where you belong, man. He became a great wrestler. He was a state champion his junior year as a wrestler. So he was a fantastic athlete, strong dude, one-on-one type guy, but he had that mentality where whatever it takes, I'm going to get it done. And obviously he did it well enough in high school to be heavily recruited. He went to Florida State. And during the recruiting trip there, one of the coaches said, you know, we've got a couple guys on our roster that are really pretty doggone good. One of them is this Derek Brooks guy. So it won't be probably till your sophomore year when Derek's gone before you're going to get a chance to play. And that really upset him. He didn't like that at all. He goes, I'm going in to play right now. I'm going to start right now. I'm going to be a part of this. He was recruited by Steve Spurrier at Florida. He nixed both of them, and he ends up going to Miami. What a great and interesting career he ended up having there with the Hurricanes.
Well, like you said, he was going to take a backseat to Derek Brooks, but he actually ended up starting his last 5 games his freshman year at Miami. He had 81 tackles his freshman year at Miami. I mean, he was very, very solid player. A team that was still very synonymous. They had a lot of superstar talent. You know, the Miami team of the 80s. It wasn't the 2000 Hurricanes you want to talk about, but the flash and the star power was there, and it was synonymous with being a Hurricane at that time, especially on the defensive side of the football. They had some nasty dudes at Miami on the defensive side of the football, and Ray did a phenomenal job there of kind of carrying the torch and kind of keeping that going. I know they weren't as successful during his tenure in the mid-90s, but he still had a phenomenal college career with the Hurricanes.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he was an instant difference maker for the defense on that roster. An all-state player, All-American in high school. He ends up going to Miami. And 1983, Dennis Erickson becomes the head coach there. They go 9-3. They lose to Arizona in the Fiesta Bowl. In 94, they go 10-2, and they lose to Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. They beat Florida State that year, 34-20. So I think a little bit of a payback in terms of Ray's personal disdain with the Seminoles and what happened during that recruiting process. But he says on numerous occasions that defense there on that 94 team, with Warren Sapp being a part, he had 152 tackles.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And then Dennis Erickson leaves to go to Seattle to become a head coach there with the Seahawks. Butch Davis comes in, and he's all Big East, all American. He was number 2 in the Butkus Award that year, MVP of the team, obviously, and he declares for the NFL. But short-lived, only 3 years. He didn't redshirt. He didn't need to. He was just one of those guys. Couldn't tell you what he studied while he was there at Miami, but if studying quarterbacks and wide receivers and how to play cover 2 and how to help win, he would have had a master's degree.
Yeah, I think that's a forgotten part of Ray's game, because there's a lot of the flash, there's a lot of the dancing, there's a lot of the heavy hitting, there's a lot of I mean, you can see it, the pictures we have. Half of these pictures, he's jarring the ball loose from a would-be ball carrier in a pretty violent manner, I will say. Cleveland Browns, it looks like, got the blunt end of that a good bit. But, I mean, he was a very smart guy on the football field. He knew where everybody needed to be. He was a field general before we kind of really called that on the defensive side. You know what I mean? We didn't really think of that as far as a Mike linebacker, and that's sort of become the MO of a lot of these guys. I watched Luke Kuechly play a lot. I think Luke mirrored a lot of his game off of what Ray Lewis was able to do and the influence that he had, and just sort of he's another guy, I think, maybe not revolutionized the game, but he helped change it in a positive way, and he's a staple of what linebackers are now in the NFL. A lot of tackles, leadership, and knowing where everybody needs to be. You
got to be smart to do that, and you got to be smart to be able to play every down. Yeah. There's pictures of him in his Miami uniform, and they had those Schimmel jerseys that kind of stopped about at the bottom of your rib cage.
Yeah.
2-3% body fat. Took care of himself, so he's smart in that manner. He stayed on the field, so how he worked out was completely different. There was an inner rage that he had regarding his family and no dad and some things, no dad around, but he would take a deck of cards and he would flip a card over. And if it was a 7, he'd do 7 push-ups. If it was a jack, he'd do 10 push-ups. If it was an ace, he'd do 15. The reason he picked number 52 was there's 52 cards in a deck. And so that was the way he would punish himself and kind of work to the next level. And so it started in high school, but when he gets to college, he will ask for number 52, and he had it all throughout his career. Who's going to turn away and tell the man he can't have it? But if you did have that number before him, you're going to probably have to give it up. But you didn't in that case, and he ends up being 52. It was available when he's drafted. His rookie season, is 1976, and he immediately is a difference maker there, Brian. That was an odd year there for the Ravens. They had come from Cleveland. Art Modell decided to move, and he was going to move the Browns to Baltimore. They wanted to be in the Maryland area, and obviously Baltimore is where they settled. But the Cleveland fans sued and won and said, you can't take the logo, the colors, you cannot take the name. So he had to rename the franchise. He did, in honor of Edgar Allan Poe, who wrote The Raven. He called them the Baltimore Ravens. The Colts were already, now the Colts should have sued the NFL also and said, no, our colors and our name, the logo, all of that should stay here in Baltimore. But the Ursays didn't have the suit, so they got to call the Colts Indianapolis and go with them. But they start this franchise. Jonathan Ogden is their first pick in the first round at number 4, but Ray ends up later, 26, if I'm not mistaken, being a part of an amazing draft class, 2 Hall of Famers that you pick when you bring the franchise to Baltimore. But things changed there, and Baltimore wanted a team, and it was a little bit different getting started, and it took a couple of years, but they obviously got the right guy when they got Ray Lewis.
I mean, talk about a draft class. Jeez, I mean, you get a couple Hall of Famers early on. The inaugural season, I think that's part of the reason why the Ravens had such good success is who they brought in early. I think Ray was, if I'm not mistaken, the last active member of that inaugural squad as well. Yeah. But, I mean, the Ravens are synonymous with winning. They've done a phenomenal job building a tremendous football team there. And a lot of it, the staple is the defensive side. You know what I mean? We talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers in the same division, obviously, so they're back and forth. There's a rivalry there, but they sort of took what the Steelers did as far as we're going to play defense, we're going to play smash mouth, we're going to run the ball. We're going to have guys that are just nastier, more physical on that side of the football, the defensive side of the football than you are. And there's like there's a, in the back of your mind, like, hey, we got to play the Ravens this week. You know, if I go over there, I got to meet Ray Lewis, and then you bring in Ed Reed, and then you bring in Terrell Suggs, and just some of the guys that they had over his tenure. But Ray was the focal point. He was the anchor. He was the guy in the middle, that the glue that held it all together. And he did a phenomenal job of doing so, and it led to multiple championships. And he spearheaded it. He was. If you think about the Baltimore Ravens, the face of the Baltimore Ravens, for most people, Ray Lewis is the guy that you picture first.
And Ray, right from the get-go, really makes his name well known, not only amongst the players or the broadcasters, but there were fans that were watching that were going, hey, who's this young kid that had 110 tackles his rookie season, 2.5 sacks? He ends up with an interception. His second year, 184 tackles. He had 4 sacks that year. In 98, that was the and by the way, that was second year. That's when I was with the Ravens. And one of the things that I know, Ray was kind of quiet during the week. You know, he's not dancing, and he's not doing that little footstep thing that he did. That came a little bit later with some of the success that he would have. But here's where I give credit. We had a little bit of this debate when we were going to start the show. Part of the reason that I think Butkus or Mike Singletary or any other interior linebacker has to give credit to their defensive line. Jack Lambert, we talked about the Steelers a little bit earlier this morning, had the steel curtain in front of him. And what I mean by that, Brian, is basically for the average fan to realize if you've got a defensive line that can keep a guard or a tackle or a center, in the case of Ray, off of me, and I got free roam between the tight ends slots in the box, or basically tackle to tackle, and I can roam free. And with a guy with Ray's strength, with his savvy, with his aggressiveness, that is a blessing in disguise. And that early Ravens team, you had Mike McCarthy, for example. You've got Tony Saragusa, some other big bodies. Sam Adams was a part of that for a couple of years. Those guys are occupying linemen and allowing Ray to roam free. And that's what their job was. I'm not dissuading any of the fact that those guys could have been doing other things and maybe they get more tackles. If their job, I'm going to hit the tackle, but I'm going to hold up that guard just for a split second, and Ray makes a tackle at the line of scrimmage, then I'm doing my job as a defensive lineman. He had that all throughout his career in a way that I think benefited him more than anything. That's not a knock. That's just saying that is an add-on to have a defensive line up front that, or Saragusa, that would take up two guys. Tony didn't have a whole lot of tackles, but Ray did. And having that with him allowed him to be a better player than he could have ever been if he had been a member of the Atlanta Falcons back in that day, or name another team, Buffalo. Good, but not great. And the defensive line makes a huge difference. Tell me where I'm wrong.
No, I agree. I mean, it's a team sport. It takes all 11 guys on defense. If one or two guys out of position, it blows the whole thing up. Ray took advantage of a very good situation. I don't think Ray played on a bad football team from the time he was in high school until the time he retired. And he was an anchor on that. Like I've said, he was a huge part of the success, but he's had there's a lot of Hall of Fame names that you can throw in there that Ray Lewis had around him as far as running mates on that side of the football. The Ravens, just what they were able to do, the talent they were able to bring in and accrue over the time he was there on the defensive side of the ball is spectacular. I mean, you could argue maybe Joe Flacco is one of those guys. He was a tremendous draft pick there as well, but most of what they did was they ran the football and they played really, really good defense. And Ray was at the center of that, but having a front four, having other running makes, I mean, he's had some good linebackers around him as well. But what he was able to do, though, his longevity, as far as his availability, career leader for, all of the NFL in the history of the game as far as solo tackles and his combined tackles. I mean, that does speak for himself. If you ask anybody, maybe he's not the best on everybody's list, but he's one of those guys where it's second, third, maybe fourth as far as maybe his worst ranking, maybe all time as far as linebackers are concerned.
Yeah, where do you put him? You can't, unless if you're a Steeler fan, you hate him
Yeah.
because he's in your
Right.
division. You hate him,
Yeah.
and so you won't have him as your number one guy. You're going to put Lambert, or you're going to put any of the other Steeler greats. There will obviously be number one. I would think that New England has the same thing. We respect him, but I'm not going to put him in my Hall of Fame because he was too busy tackling. And then some of the great losses that the Patriots, you always remember your losses that Brady will talk about, will be against the Ravens. Gosh, if we had only won that game, we were a fantastic team that year. They had great success, don't get me wrong. I agree, and I think that Ray is on the podium no matter what team you like. Raiders and that the Colts, great rivalry with those teams in the years that they played against each other. Obviously, the picture of him and Peyton shaking hands there at the end of a ball game when Peyton had crossed the line and ended his career in Denver. But Ray, yeah, definitely. And another thing too, imagine being an offensive coordinator and you're playing the Ravens. How do you tell the offensive line? How do you tell your running back, especially you've got Eddie George, for example? You go off left tackle, you got Bruce Matthews right there, Munchak, but there's not going to be a hole there. You're going to have to cut it back. That's your strategy for that week is going to be, we've got to do something different in our running game in order for us to be able to occupy Ray and to get him out of position so that we can be successful from one week to the next.
Not an easy task. Not an easy ask. I feel there are a lot of running backs that woke up on that Monday morning after playing the Ravens very, very sore, and I think Ray was a big part of that. One thing that I found interesting, he is his total career tackles, more than 75% of his career tackles are solo tackles, which is not something you see as much anymore. But when he got a hold of you, he didn't really need a gang tackle. You didn't really need other guys to come in, and he didn't really give them a lot of time either. When Ray was hitting you, you were on the ground very, very quickly. As you can see, half the pictures we have up here, it's almost seeming like he's doing something illegal to a lot of these ball carriers because it's just I mean, he's a big physical guy. He was quick too. He was a lot faster than what he looked for his size. I think a lot of it early in the career when he had the big shoulder pads as well. You look a little bit bigger. You look a little bit meaner. You look a little bit slower. But Ray could move, and it's just, man, some of the hits. I remember the mic'd up moment they had with Chad Johnson, where they asked him to crack Ray, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll go do it. I'll go crack him." And you're going to the play, and you get pop, and then it's Chad's going full tilt, and Ray doesn't move, and then the next play, you see him over on the sidelines, he's taking a knee with his position coach. He's got his helmet in hand. He's like, man, he didn't move at all, coach. I couldn't get him out of the way. Couldn't do it. And it's just that it's And all he did was just put his shoulder out. He said, "Nope, you're not going to get me, not going to touch me." And then Chad's flat on his back. I just think it's funny. I think that was what Ray was known for. It's just he's an immovable object, and he was perhaps, like we said, one of the best ever at being so.
Yeah. He went from, I got this guy, I can do this. When the contact is made, the first thing Chad does is lose his legs. He ends
Yep.
up down on the ground, his knees buckle, and Ray goes over and makes the tackle.
Yep.
And Chad's just trying to catch, the spider webs are all in
Yep.
his head. And he goes, man,
Yep.
that dude, that's something else. Well,
Couldn't do
talk
it.
about the 2000 year. I'm thinking, and no disrespect to Trent Dilfer, but anybody, Brian, if you or Grandma could take the field and quarterback that team, they were going to win. That's how good their defense was all throughout the year. Just don't lose it, Trent. And he ends up winning a Super Bowl, his first. He's the MVP of that game. Talk a little bit about, just how complete a unit they were. Imagine if they had at that time a Ben Roethlisberger or an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady were playing for the Baltimore Ravens at that time. That's really the only missing piece that they had.
As great as Joe Flacco was throughout his career, they didn't really have any flash at quarterback. It was more so, hey, let's go run the ball. Don't turn it over. If you can give me 225 passing yards in a game with a touchdown and we score 17 points, we're probably going to win. And think about it on the flip side. If you're a quarterback playing for the Baltimore Ravens, that's all you got to do. You don't have to do anything spectacular. Go out there, play smart, take care of the ball, do what you got to do, and you're going to have a tremendous amount of success. I mean, there's not a lot of high scoring games that the Baltimore Ravens were in during Ray Lewis's tenure. And if it was, a lot of times it's because Ed Reed took a touchdown back. They had a kick return taken back because they had Jacoby Jones later on in his career. He was a phenomenal return man. But It was the offense didn't have to be special. They had to be good, but they didn't have to be great. I don't have to go out and beat Tom Brady because I've got Tom Brady on defense as far as Ray Lewis. I have the New England Patriots on defense as far as what we're able to do, as far as our attitude, our demeanor, what we bring to the table, what teams think of us as far as how they got to prepare to play against us. No one was ever taught. I mean, you have Jamal Lewis, you have some guys that were really, really good on the offensive side of the ball, but people aren't really worried about the offense as much. It's how do we score against these guys, especially if you're going into a playoff setting where they're at home, where they have a bye, where they have extra time to prepare. It was almost an impossible task.
Yeah. Defense first. Defense wins championships. They had that in place. Trent Dilfer comes in. He goes 10 for 18 for 185 yards, and they're going to win every one of those ball games. They end up dominating New York. 34-7 was the final in special teams touchdown. So the defense pitches an actual shutout, even though they gave up 7 points in terms of the total. But defensive MVP of the game. What do you have? 35 different tackles, some pass deflections, an interception or two in the playoff run that they had there in the 4 games that they were a part of that. Just a dominating season. And the Ravens, are on the map. And every year from then on out, it's like, okay, I know the Patriots are good. I know the Broncos are good. I know the Colts are good. I know that, but you've got to take the Ravens into account as well.
I think what gets overshadowed is the Cincinnati Bengals had some really good football teams during Ray's tenure, but with how good the Ravens were and how good the Steelers were, they just never. It's really, really difficult to be a contender and to be a really good football team when you're the third best team in your division.
Yep.
And that was, the Browns are the Browns, obviously, but there was some really good football played in the AFC North during Ray's tenure, and I remember you get a lot of the late afternoon games. Where you get in November and maybe early December, where it's Baltimore and Pittsburgh, it's Baltimore and Cincinnati with a division title not on the line, but you're saying, hey, this game matters a lot, and it's going to help whoever wins is in the driver's seat as far as hosting a playoff game and potentially, a date with, because back then you had New England, you had Indianapolis, like, hey, maybe you win your playoff game, and then you got either Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, and I think the Baltimore Ravens were one of the few teams that those names didn't strike as much fear into your heart as maybe everyone else, because they said, hey, the guys we have on the defensive side of the football, I'm more worried about if our offense can show up. But I know the guys, especially Ray Lewis, I got these guys on my defense, so we don't really have to worry about Tom. We don't really have to worry about Peyton as much. And it was a nasty football team, and Ray started to get more eccentric at that time. And I don't think it was a cockiness, where some guys it can kind of get annoying. I think it became more his personality and kind of the city's personality and the team's personality as well, with the dancing and everything beforehand. And it was more like an intimidation factor. And I think it worked a little bit.
9 times they go to the playoffs in the next 12 years. I'm not going to say they dominated. Obviously, the Patriots did, but you bring up an interesting point. I think if the Cincinnati Bengals could sue the league and go, "You get us out of this division so we can go win somewhere else,"
Yep.
they would certainly want to present the best case. They'd probably hire a dream team to make that happen. With Johnny Cochran and Alan Dershowitz and Shapiro and everybody, so that they could get and now we can compete.
Yeah.
But it was so tough between the Steelers and the Ravens that time. So they win the Super Bowl in 2000, and then in 12 they win it again. It's a long time. It's the 13-year in terms of the season. But they had some great playoff runs, and Ray leads the league in tackles and does everything. But the way that he went out in terms of winning his last game and having that be hoisting another Super Bowl championship. Couldn't have asked for a more picturesque type of way to finish it. That's really what dreams are made of.
That is the dream. I think he went out on his own terms, and I still think if you go watch his tape from that year, he probably had more in the tank. He probably could have played another year or two. Now maybe they don't win, and maybe it does a little too much to his body to where he's like, man, I really don't want to. I don't really want to go to training camp. I remember there was a story Michael Strahan on Good Morning America was saying the best. I think it was the best 50 grand he ever spent was not going to training camp. And I
Yeah.
think once you get older, you're like, hey, I don't want to go through this anymore. And what better way to go out? You know what I mean? I already own all the tackle records. I'm probably the face of this team, which more so for the older guard, for the newer fans, it might be Lamar Jackson, but Ray Lewis they don't have a Mr. Raven, but he would have been Mr. Raven. And to go out on top, 2-time champ, what he was able to do and his on the field work speaks for itself. And it's hard to argue. He's maybe not that. I know we went back and forth a little bit, but I mean, it's hard to not put him in the conversation for the greatest to ever do it.
Now, part of the controversy around any player is what happens when, and then Ray obviously had a little bit of that here during the Super Bowl in Atlanta when Tennessee and the St. Louis Rams play. Ray was at a nightclub. It's called the Cobalt. There was a man they got in a fight with someone who Ray was around, and there was a stabbing and a death that was a part of that. Because Ray was there, the authorities tried to pin it on him that he actually quote unquote pulled the trigger, that he was a part of the stabbing. And he was behind it. He was amongst the guys that were there, but he was found not guilty. It was self-defense. And say what you will about that, but that is a black cloud over Ray's career and over him personally. But he defeated that, so to speak, in that a jury of his peers found that he was not guilty. But everything else in his life, especially football related, top-notch, hardworking, the guy you'd want to have on your roster. So whether he be the gold, silver, or bronze medalist, he's going to get a medal in terms of where do you rank him in terms of his overall success and what he meant to the league and how he kept it going and really established the Ravens as being a dominant team that they still are today without him. Different coaching staff, but they are a defensive first organization, and they have been ever since Ray got there with the 26th round draft, 26th pick in the first round. They're back in 96.
His mindset. I mean, it's an organizational mindset, but when you have success, it's a lot easier to put that mindset forward. And I think the smash mouth, the defensive mindset. I think that division as a whole, because you have the Steelers as well, where they have that same mindset. Well, smash mouth, play defense. We got some nasty guys up here that you're going to have to go up against, and you're going to have to worry about our front seven. And I think Ray is the embodiment of the success of what you can do when you draft well, when you put good talent on the field. Because you can have any mindset you want. You can say, hey, we want to play this type of football. We want to play this brand of football. We want to do this, but you have to have the players to do it. It's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and those. And Ray was a heck of a Jimmy or Joe to have anchor whatever you were trying to do. It's because a lot of it's just, hey, it doesn't really matter what we were a 3-4, 4-3. Really doesn't matter if number 52 is in the middle. We've got a really good chance to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all of his NFL career was with one team, the Baltimore Ravens. He wins 2 Super Bowls. He's the MVP of one of them, Defensive Player of the Year, two separate occasions. He was first team All Pro on 7 different occasions, second team All Pro another 3 of those years. 13 times he ends up going to the Hawaii and going and playing in the Pro Bowl. He was the NFL solo tackle leader 3 times, combined leader 3 times as well. He's on the NFL's 2000s All-Decade team, the NFL 100 anniversary team. He's in the Ring of Honor, first-team All-American when he was in college. He was a third-team All-American when he first gets to the University of Miami. He has the most career combined tackles in NFL history, most solo career tackles, most tackles in a season with 156 back in 1997. He is Ray Lewis, and we are honored to mention him as a member of the NFL Pro Hall of Fame as well. So for Ray Lewis's amazing career, and for us getting a chance to talk about it, Brian LeBel, Jeremiah Long, and myself, Harper LeBel, Vincent Turner will be back with us next week. We appreciate you tuning in here today on 100 Yards of Football. This has been our Legends show. We thank you for being a part of it. So have a great day, everybody. We wish you all the best.